more time. I'd like to welcome everyone to our AMA session here today on Twitter Spaces with a couple really exciting teams from Cronos blockchain, from Kingdom Karnage, and of course from Altura. We're all thrilled to have you here today and discuss how this recently announced collaboration is further accelerating Web3 game development, both on the Cronos chain and broadly. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Nick Timko. I'm the strategic partnerships leader here at Altura. With me today, I've got Altura's founder, Mej. I've got Jay from the Cronos blockchain, as well as Nick and Sam, who are the founders of Kingdom Karnage. The plan for today is just to go through some questions on both the technical aspects of this partnership, what the wider industry implications are, and what opportunities it offers for game developers before we jump into the Q&A. So why don't we not waste any more time and just get started? I'd like to pass it over first to Jay, just to kick things off. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about the Cronos blockchain, how it fits into the broader crypto.com ecosystem, and what the new and exciting things that it's bringing to the table in Web3 are.
Right, awesome. Thanks for the intro, Nick. So firstly, my name is Jay, and I lead ecosystem growth and partnerships at Cronos Chain. So I work actively with projects that are building on the chain and partners such as Altura, who are helping to grow the chain's infrastructure. Right, so for all of you who is first time hearing about Cronos, right? Cronos is an EVM layer 1 blockchain built on the Cosmos SDK. Right, so we are interoperable across the Ethereum network, across EVM chains, and also within the Cosmos ecosystem. Right, and also we are also supported by Crypto.com. And what this support means, it's across Crypto.com's suite of products, all of which are deeply integrated with Cronos, right? Such as the Crypto.com DeFi wallet, Crypto.com NFT marketplace, Crypto.com exchange, right? All of it touches Cronos in a very deep level, and projects that are building on Cronos gets huge exposure to the Crypto.com base, which are called the Crow Fam, and I think many of them are sitting here today, right? And what it really brings to the table in the Web3 gaming space and what Cronos stands really strong in, it's our reach of the retail user base, right? We have a very large set of retail user base .com who wants a decentralized and open source experience outside of the exchange, right? So game developers that build on Cronos oftentimes get access to this 80 million of users from the Crypto.com ecosystem, and they can essentially help with their user acquisition when we partner with the games to promote them and help them to acquire users from the Crypto.com community. And it also benefits the Crypto.com users because they get to play fun games that are building on a chain.
Love that. Speaking of fun games, maybe we'll kick it over to Nick and Sam from Kingdom Karnage, and you guys can walk us through what some of the unique features of your game are, and maybe just speak on how it utilizes Web3 and NFTs to create a more fun, engaging, and immersive experience for gamers themselves.
Hi there, I'm Sam. I'm the COO of Capital Studios, which is our main title is Kingdom Karnage. One of the most unique things that we're currently doing with Kingdom Karnage is, sounds a little bit counterintuitive, we are making it so it's actually accessible to Web2 players. Now, the reason that we're kind of going about this is because we're not daft. We know where all the players are. We're just aiming so that it's as easily accessible as possible. And obviously, over time, as adoption comes, we want to be part of the transition of moving players from being Web2 players to introducing them to Web3 players, but doing so kind of at a speed that is accessible to them. And in the meanwhile, we also put in lots of innovative things in the game so that nothing is kind of lost if you aren't a Web3 user immediately. You can use things like an in-game auction house in-game, but there will be features like NFT rentals, which will only be available if you then mint your NFTs. So essentially, we're hoping to kind of capture the big gaming masses, get them really interested in our game, and then slowly transition them from being a Web2 user to being a Web3 user and having a Cronos wallet. We are also looking forward to some of the really fun things we can do with NFTs. For example, we're going to get really into interoperability, be able to kind of take some of our NFTs, use them in other people's games, and likewise support some other people's games, other people's NFTs in our games. So we've kind of been looking forward to getting on the Cronos chain, and hopefully, Jay, you can kind of hook us up with a few games on the network, and we can kind of form partnerships there.
For sure.
And with no doubt, I mean, the thing that we definitely need to mention in terms of immersive gaming experience is the pets, which are upcoming on Cronos. We're going to be launching some pet NFTs where basically your pet is with you in every battle, so he's always kind of there next to your hero. He's going to give you an additional ability to play with while you've got him equipped. And whereas most NFTs, they give you benefits while you're in the game, these are also going to give you a benefit while you're not in the game. So whether you're in the game or not, they're always going to be mining KKT for you. So you've got that kind of ongoing benefit. We're really looking forward to seeing how the community kind of interact with their pets, which also you'll be able to feed your characters that you loot to pets as well. So it'll be fun to see how everyone gets interacting with those, and they should be launching on the Cronos network within the next quarter.
Awesome. That's super exciting. At least personally, every time that I hear about pets in gaming, I'm taken right back to my days as a kid playing Club Penguin and nurturing my puffle. That's awesome. Okay. And then, last but certainly not least, for our listeners who may not be familiar with Altura, Mej, I'd like to kick it over to you just to give us a brief overview of what the project is, how it helps game developers build innovative Web3 games, and sort of what's cooking with Altura these days.
Yeah, absolutely, Nick. Thank you. Firstly, that Club Penguin reference made me laugh. I spent so much of my childhood playing that, and those puffles are the perfect example of potential NFTs. So thank you for bringing that up. What we do at Altura is we make it easy to build Web3 games. So we're a very interoperable Web3 infrastructure solution that makes building Web3 games incredibly simple and allows your everyday Web2 game developer to seamlessly come on and build and integrate NFTs into their experiences without needing to know any of the complexities or go through the hassle of learning Web3. And there's a lot to learn if you want to build a Web3 game from scratch. You have to learn, new programming languages. You have to set up your own nodes. You have to know which and how to interact with different blockchains. But Altura kind of abstracts away and simplifies all of that. Diving a little deeper, what our product suite has within it is one, integration tools. So our API and SDKs allow you to read, transfer, and update NFTs in game. We provide marketplace solutions like our larger NFT marketplace, which gives game developers the opportunity to expose their games to Altura's ever-growing community and allows gamers to explore new games. And finally, we have authentication tools like Altura Guard, which is getting a lot better later this year, which allows game developers to seamlessly onboard Web2 players and Web3 players as well. So it's supposed to be sort of an interoperable solution there. We've been around for about 2 years, and within our time, we've become a Unity verified solution. We've worked with over 100 game studios to help them integrate Web3, Kingdom Carnage, of course, being one of those studios who we've had a pleasure working with. And we've had, over 40,000 people interact with our marketplace.
Awesome. Super helpful. Okay, now we know who's who. Why don't we jump into the partnership itself? I'll start it again with Jay. I'd really like to know, and I think it would be helpful for the community just to understand how this partnership came about between Altura and Cronos, and what the main goals are from your perspective as a blockchain partnering up with an infrastructure provider. Sort of what that accomplishes strategically as far as your entrance and your moves in the Web3 gaming space.
Right. So actually, this partnership has been quite some time coming already. And when we finally made the announcement last week, a lot of hype was around it. We received a lot of interest from other game studios who wanted to either partner with us or partner with Altura. So I'll say this partnership has been really beneficial for both of us. And I remember sometime in December last year, I was already speaking with Nick and Sam from Kingdom Carnage, right? I think it was an introduction from the community team who was speaking with Kingdom Carnage as a potential game. that they are working with. And then they mentioned that they were working with gaming SDK provider called Altura, which is you guys. Right? And then that was how everything started. I found out that you guys were building great toolings for Web2 developers, Web2 game studios to utilize. And I think that's really beneficial, right? Because right now in the Web3 gaming space today, we pretty much only tap upon like 0.5% or less than 1% of the total gaming market. So what that means is there's a lot of Web2 game studios, game developers out there that has a high barrier to entry into the space, partially because of the tech stack that they might not be familiar with, right? So it's great that you guys are abstracting that layer, right? Allowing the game studios and game developers to focus on what they are experts at, right? Building great games. And that's where us as a chain, we are focusing on as well, right? Working with as many game studios out there, right? Web2 game studios who might not have the knowledge in building Web3 in the Web3 tech stack. And then we'll be working together with you guys to become enablers of growth, right? Help them to launch their Web2 games or their newly made Web3 games in partnership with Altura, launching on Cronos. And I think that is extremely beneficial for all of us and for the Crow fam, for all of the community as well.
Yeah, I agree, Jay. I think, the biggest thing that sticks out to me personally is that comment on allowing game developers, and here's a shocking concept, is allowing game developers to focus on making fun games and not managing a blockchain tech stack. I think that's the way that we end up with some good quality titles for players to really enjoy. So I think that's a natural segue to kick it over to Nick and Sam. Maybe you guys can tell us a bit more, specifically about what tools and resources you guys are using from Altura, kind of what we've brought to the table, and how it has helped you accomplish, the building and construction of many of the mechanics that you guys have in the game.
Yeah, cheers. I'll take that one. So, firstly, Altura, as everyone else already said, just makes it really simple for a Web2 dev, especially a game developer, to turn their game into a Web3 application. And part of that, as you said earlier, is not just a case of being able to mint via API or even create a collection via API. It's also then being able to have more complex interactions. With Altura bringing in Altura Guard, we can then have easier ways of connecting players' wallets to game accounts without having to get into the nitty-gritty of actually creating your own connection or learning how the Web3 aspects of that work. So there's going to be a lot more game devs get out there that will be able to do far more interesting things. We're particularly into experimenting with different ways that we can use NFT to enhance games, and from NFTs that evolve over time, which Altura Stack completely provides everything you need for that, with the ability to pre-plan and have game asset images and stats change on chain, which is fantastic. Everyone loves an upgradable NFT, to lending protocols so that people can actually rent out their assets. There's so many cool things that we can do, and it's all thanks to the way that Altura set up their API and made life easy for the game dev to then focus on what kind of utility can we bring. It's not just about minting a collection, it's about bringing very cool utility, different ways that NFTs can actually fit into games, and take this tech to a whole new level.
Excellent. Thanks for that. Mej, I think, this is a natural transition point where maybe you can tell us, okay, so Altura has gone ahead. We've integrated with the Cronos ecosystem. I think it's pretty clear from Kingdom Carnage how that actually simplifies the game development process. Can you tell us a little bit about how that decision was made on Altura's side, right, to go ahead and integrate Cronos, and what it means as far as yet another manifestation of our ethos of supporting developer choice and giving them the freedom to use the chains and tools that they would like to?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think you said it, hit it right on the head, which is providing more choice and options to developers. Basically, we see ourselves as an enabler and don't want to confine developers looking to build their games into like what blockchain we think is best or what kind of wallet we think is best. Instead, we appreciate that the space is rapidly growing and the technologies and the blockchains and the wallets and the core infrastructure is always getting better. And Altura is kind of just that layer above all of those core technologies and is an enabler to those technologies. And for that reason, we try to be as interoperable as possible. And one of that means, supporting the leading blockchains when it comes to gaming. Cronos definitely caught our eye. And part of that is, because they're really supporting gaming, especially with that $100 million fund. They have their own SDKs and APIs on their blockchain that facilitate gaming. And they're really positioning themselves to be sort of a fantastic interoperable gaming blockchain. We've seen a lot of demand from game developers to actually use Cronos, and that was more than enough for us to pull the trigger and integrate Cronos into our suite of blockchains. And we can definitely appreciate as well that it's a Cosmos blockchain, which means that it's very interoperable. On top of that, it has incredibly low gas fees. It's very fast. It has a massive ecosystem behind it. It has the backing of Crypto.com, a massive community, and all of those things make it the perfect blockchain for gaming. And that's why we've decided to add it to our suite. And I think a lot of our game studios using our platform can really appreciate it, and a lot of them are actually turning to Cronos with our support as well.
Okay, cool. Every time I hear this question, I want to kick it back over to you, Jay, because we're using that word that is thrown around, I think, so much in this business: interoperability, things being interoperable. The Cosmos-based design of Cronos and that element of having inter-blockchain communication, it's such a big part of your value proposition. So I just wanted to kick that over to you and maybe hear it from yourself, how Cronos is thinking about that, how, what the benefits are of using tools like Ethermint and these kind of items to support, massive migration of data from EVM chains onto the Cronos blockchain. And maybe to summarize that question, like, what does interoperability mean to you and to Cronos?
Right. I think this word interoperable has been quite a buzzword for the past, especially for the past 2 years. Start of 2021, when the odd layer one thesis started to come out. Everyone was talking about interoperable, transferring of assets, transferring of value from the base layer Ethereum to other layer one chains, other blockchains. And at its core, it's really transferring of value, transferring of messages, transferring of assets from a state in a block in a single chain to a state in another chain. And oftentimes, going deeper into the technicalities of it, when you want to transfer value between chain A to chain B, oftentimes you rely on a trusted messenger, right? Sometimes there might be some, and those are typically called bridges to transfer assets from certain chains to another chain, right? And sometimes you have to trust an intermediary, you have to trust a bridge. The value that you want to transfer hits the other chain fully and securely. And I think many of us has experienced the fear, right, when you try to bridge your assets from a chain to another chain, right? It takes so long, and then you're unsure where the assets is at, right? Whether you will be getting the asset, and that fear is there, right? And what building on Cosmos SDK really allows us, it's being enabled by the IBC connection, which is called inter-blockchain connection, to trustlessly transfer assets across Cosmos chains, right? So what this means trustlessly is that we do not need to trust any intermediary to transfer our assets from Cronos to other Cosmos-based chains that are IBC enabled, right? Long story short, developers who build on Cronos, right, would be able to get access to both Cronos user base and the Cosmos user base, who are able to trustlessly transfer their assets from Cosmos into Cronos, right? And that really benefits developers, right? Because as a developer, when you build on a chain, you will want to be exposed to as many users as possible. Right? So Cronos being so deeply entrenched in the Cosmos ecosystem, right, allows developers to not only target Cronos user base, but also market themselves, right, acquire users from the Cosmos ecosystem who can trustlessly and seamlessly bridge their assets, transfer their assets to Cronos via IBC. Right, and that's great because it just definitely helps to lower your user acquisition costs in terms of having very targeted marketing approaches.
Awesome. Thanks for that. I definitely learned something when you got a little bit technical there. Okay, I think this is a great time to now. We've touched on one buzzword. We've talked about interoperability. Let's open this up to discussing the whole industry, right? And I want to kick it over to Nick and Sam from Kingdom Carnage here. You guys mentioned that the focus is bringing Web 2 users onto Web 3 in a simple way where that those key issues of user onboarding are solved. I wanted to pose the question to you guys of how do you see Web3 gaming transforming the gaming industry as a whole? Is there going to be a delineation between Web 2 and Web 3 gaming? Is it all just going to be called gaming, as I think many of us are hoping it will be? And to get a bit more specific, what are the opportunities that Web3 brings to game devs and to players, and what are the challenges that it brings to the devs and the players as well?
That's a really good question.
Sorry, I think we both spoke at once there. I am very, very hopeful, as you've just said there, that we just have gaming. I'm hoping that there is no Web3 and Web2 gaming. I think that is what I'm hoping is people will start to do what we're doing, which is concentrating on their game first and then adding the Web3 functions to make the game better. And once the kind of wider industry understand that's kind of what's happening, and we kind of get away from some of the at the moment, I think when a lot of people think of a Web3 game, they think of kind of these games where you turn up, you click a button, and you get given a bit of currency, and there's not really much gamification about it. So once there are some games that actually have like a meaty core gameplay that people are coming back to, whether the Web3 aspect is there or not, then I think they'll start to learn, I can play this game without the Web3 features, but then, wait a minute, I want that feature. I want to be able to rent my characters, for example. As I mentioned earlier, we'll do NFT rentals. So then they'll start to think, oh, well, maybe this isn't so bad, and I'll just have, a wallet for that aspect. And slowly their confidence will grow. And then perhaps I go to a different game, and then they're saying, oh, I've got that wallet from that time I did NFT rentals at Kingdom Carnage. And all of a sudden, before we blink, people have starting we've got kind of a Web3 adoption going on. When we get to the point where the consumers are demanding these features as standard, then of course some of the big players in the game are going to have to start caving, and then I think we are moving towards that kind of thing where it's just expected as part of gaming. Some of the Web3 features, like I say, being able to rent your assets, or perhaps some of the games we currently play where we just buy on one console and then we go and buy them on the next console. Well, perhaps we'll have NFT licensing, so that you don't have to do that. We won't have to keep buying the same console over and over again. But likewise, some of the game developers might find they're able to get royalties from this kind of the second-hand market, whereas at the moment, game developers don't have access to that market. Don't know if you've got anything you want to add, Nick?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a longer transition than people expect, though. In order to get the core Web2 players that are out there involved and actually wanting to play Web3 games, it almost needs to be under the hood without them actually having to do any of the hard work. You're not going to teach the average player to use Web3 wallets. It's not going to happen. So as the Web3 side evolves into what we like to call Web 2.5, that's where we're going to really see the growth in crypto and NFTs, where you're going to see more custodial wallet solutions, more activity on chain that's actually happening behind the scenes in a game, for example, that a lot of the time the users won't even know they're doing it, but it's going to be happening. And then there'll be trading in game where it's all done at a very high level, done very simple. The user interface is very similar to what they're already using in other Web2 games. And
yeah, I mean, honestly, guys, what that makes me think about is just, I think an anecdote that I heard from, I think it was Keith Grossman, who used to be at Time and now he's at MoonPay, and he was sharing how he had a pretty tumultuous time building a Twitter page just for his mother, and he could not fathom a process where a parent is able to manage a 12-word seed phrase and deal with the MetaMask wallet. Like, truly, I would agree that there's probably a ways to go as far as handling the onboarding and simplifying that user experience so that anybody can just jump in and play these games and not worry about what the deeper nuance of custodying your own assets are. Natural transition here. I'm going to kick it over to Mej. We've mentioned, in Nick's answer there, some of the difficulties that we're seeing in the space. In your view, what are some of the biggest barriers to the adoption of Web3 gaming? And for us, we speak with so many different game developers. As an industry, how can we work to address these barriers and really try to drive a bit of wider adoption and mainstream recognition for the space?
Yeah, fantastic question. So I think the barriers to entry are quite simple, and it really is just user experience and user interfaces across the board. This is true of any new technology, and this is also true for both the game developer and the actual player. So when it comes to the game developer, there isn't much infrastructure that streamlines the ability to build Web3 games. Game developers are not Web3 developers. Those are fundamentally different sort of paradigms of programming, paradigms of development. When you're building a game in Unity, you're using C, C Sharp, and you have all of your different kind of tools that you've learned throughout your career as a game developer. But when it comes to crypto, there's so many new languages and all of the issues that come with building a crypto game. And so we just need really good tools to build Web3 games. And that's really what Altura is trying to provide. And what a lot of our, competition and other people in the space are trying to provide as well. And luckily, the infrastructure is actually growing at a rapid pace. So I don't want people to kind of confuse the last wave of games that came out in the bull market as sort of what Web3 gaming is, which sometimes breaks my heart when I see. And the reason for that is that was sort of the first massive boom of NFTs, and nobody had time to lay down the proper groundwork to actually build proper games, which now the bear market has sort of given us time to, and the infrastructure has caught up. And now it is a lot easier to build Web3 games. So that's the first part on the game developer side. It's just the proper tooling and infrastructure that sort of allows these game developers to integrate blockchain-backed assets into their games. When it comes to the users, I do think wallets is a big sticking point. I think user experience in general is a big sticking point, and we're still kind of trying to find the balance of Web3 and Web2. How much do we want to custody or centralize these assets versus how much do we want to give the user control of these assets? And obviously, giving the user more control entails a little bit more complexity, entails the user needing to have more responsibility, needing to be a little bit more nuanced when it comes to Web3. And I think there's no right answer. I think that there's going to be a broad range of different wallets. And I think that there will be different solutions for different types of players, and that's sort of the approach that Altura is taking, which is, like Nick said, if we want to onboard millions of players, we do definitely need to allow them to sign in with social login, to sign in a very seamless way. And then later, when they become a little bit more nuanced, they can take custody of their own assets. And that's a very seamless way to sort of bring people on and then let them own their own assets. And this is actually what we've seen with crypto in general, and it's actually worked out pretty well. So, for example, when I first came into the crypto space looking to invest in Bitcoin, I used Coinbase. I used just a normal exchange because the idea of needing to manage a wallet was too scary for me. I was like, "What do you mean I have to download, a desktop application and write these words down on a paper?" That just didn't make any sense to me. But later, as I got accustomed to the idea and I understood what self custody means, I slowly started to transition out of Coinbase, and I started to see the benefits of owning my own assets, and I started to understand that this is sort of the biggest benefit of this technology in general. So, I think the space is maturing, and I think that user experience and user interfaces is already getting so much better across the board, and I think it's only going to keep getting better. And I really won't be surprised where in the next few years we're going to see really high quality games that appeal to the masses. That have some kind of Web3 incorporation in them. It's not black and white, it's very gray, and we are trending in the right direction.
I agree. I agree with a lot of those comments made. One of the things that I'm personally interested in is when we introduce this financial element to gaming and give players the ability to exercise real property rights over digital assets. I'm very curious to see how global regulatory regimes will communicate with each other in the future. That's just something that I'm watching. Jay, let me kick it over to you. Any of your own thoughts as far as discussing barriers to adoption in Web3 gaming?
Right, so definitely agree with Maj in terms of the user experience has definitely has to improve, and we are seeing some traction in terms of that front, where there are much more social login platforms available right now for games to integrate. Because to be honest, gamers who aren't familiar with Web3, they do not want to set up a new wallet just to play the game, right? They would definitely throw off. There'll be a huge drop-off rate whenever you tell someone to create a wallet just to play the game. Right? So like social login platforms like Magic, like Web3 Auth, like great solutions right now to allow game developers to integrate social logins. We're also seeing like account abstraction, smart contract wallets. I think that is very interesting because gamers do not, if you want to set up a mass scale of gamers to play your game, right, gas would be a huge impediment for any gamer to enjoy the game, right? With account abstraction allowing smart contracts to pay for the gas in for the end user wallet. I think that is a great segue to enable to reduce this kind of friction that might result in higher drop offs from the players themselves. Right, so I think we are still quite some distance away from a very successful user experience, but I see like more and more toolings coming up, which is great to see the ecosystem as a whole, the space as a whole, right, growing together to reduce this barrier of entry for mass adoption.
Yeah, it definitely it's we get the impression that we're in pretty early innings as far as the technology goes, but I, for one, am certainly pleased to be working with bright and passionate folks like yourselves to shape what will be a very, very influential industry. So with that, I'm going to ask all three of you one last question before we open it up to Q&A, as we just passed that 30-minute mark. Things as far as media sentiment and technology growth come and go. I think right now we're seeing a huge emergence of AI and machine learning being really, really popular and growing a ton these days. And personally, I'm of the view that emerging technologies are not a zero-sum game. They serve different purposes. So let me pose this question to everyone, and I'll start it off with Nick and Sam from Kingdom Carnage. How do you envision Web3 and elements of NFTs intersecting with other emerging technologies like virtual reality or artificial intelligence?
Well, firstly, I'll touch on the AI side. It's a great tool, especially the art side. But our two lead artists are already using AI for working on concepts. It just speeds up the process so much. We'll never switch to AI completely. I don't think that'll ever happen. There'll always need to be a human input there. But it really does speed up the process for our team. And the more they're using it, the better they're getting at it as well. As for, what was the other part? You said AI and...
I was also thinking about virtual reality, augmented reality, and how these intersect with Web3 and NFTs.
Well, augmented reality is very cool for a lot of games anyway. It doesn't fit into Kingdom Carnage as such, so we wouldn't put it in if it isn't the right fit. But for other games and games that we may well do ourselves in the future, augmented reality definitely fits in nicely. And I think you're going to find more and more games jumping on that, and they will play pilot up with NFTs. I mean, just a game where you go and track around your own country and you find locations, and then you can claim NFTs based on where you are, and you can see them through your phone as augmented creatures or animals or assets or whatever it is for the game. That's already in place. I've already seen games doing this, and you can see a lot more of it. So I think a lot of the new tech that's coming out, not just AI and augmented reality, anything else that's coming, you'll find start getting used more and more by NFTs, even down to merging real world assets and ownership of real world assets being connected to NFTs. That's another big thing that will be coming soon. It hasn't quite been perfected. I've seen a few companies trying to do it, but they haven't quite got it down yet. But it is going to happen.
Interesting. That makes me think about, a lot of the Altura team. We were at the Game Developers Conference back in March, and I tried out some of these new virtual reality, sort of setups, and they're just getting better and better every quarter. It seems it's really a ton of fun. Jay, let me kick it over to you then. Thoughts on the intersection of Web3 and NFTs with other emerging technologies?
Right. So on the AI front, definitely see quite a lot of game studios leveraging on text to image toolings like Midjourney, Leonardo AI to essentially speed up the process of creating assets. Of course, how reliable it is, probably not too sure, but I'm sure with the speed that AI is growing, right, it definitely heightens the efficiency that a studio can work to churn out like assets, creative assets, game assets, etc. But I think at its core, I think Web3 and AI actually has a very strong intersection, because Web3 at its core, it's open source data, right? It's open source public ledgers, open source public data, and that's where data scientists can leverage on this open source data on the blockchain to build extremely strong large language models, and ultimately, right, develop like based on all of the data indexed from the blockchain, right, develop very curated strategies. And a couple of these strategies is like, for example, a game like Kingdom Carnage. Let's say they have AI tooling to find out what type of use might be the best type of users for them to do targeted marketing efforts like airdrops, like airdropping of NFTs, because certain users exhibit very strong behaviors that might show that these users will be sticky, and a sticky user base for Kingdom Carnage to acquire. Right, so I think with the open source data available on the blockchain, allows for a lot of data scientists to build these very unique LLMs, which I think we will start seeing more and more very interesting hyper targeted language models in the space today.
Awesome. And last but not least, Mej, thoughts?
Yeah, I think AI has like a multitude of different applications in gaming. It's kind of annoying to say in Web3 gaming. I think it just has like application in any kind of development or gaming across the board. So as Sam had said, one application is for developers to create generative art with them for their actual studios. Another one is to, generate dynamic worlds on the fly, generate dynamic experiences, generate dynamic conversations within video games, even potentially use them to generate actual assets, which could be used as NFTs, maybe on the fly. So like, for example, in Counter-Strike, you do have like different colored patterns of items. So artificial intelligence could be used there. Much more interesting, and when it comes to AR and VR, that as well. I think different games could benefit from those kinds of experiences, and we are already seeing a lot of AR and VR games. So I think it's ridiculous to think these technologies are a zero-sum game. I mean, they're just such fundamentally different kinds of technologies, and I think we should be, leveraging as many, different emerging technologies in video games where it makes sense if it increases the actual emergence and the experience for the player. I think, as AI continues to get better and better, especially with, these large language models being able to now become multimodal and, just getting exponentially better, which is a little scary. We're seeing, our internet get flooded with a lot of fake data, so much information. And for example, now you only need 2 seconds of somebody's voice to completely continue creating their voice using artificial intelligence. You can create, people's faces very easily. Deep fakes are very common, and I think blockchain has a place to be a source of authentication and validation within the internet. And it's sort of like in a world with so much data, so much fake data, so much inability to validate. I think blockchain technology and a single source of truth really kind of adds a breath of fresh air. And I think that these two technologies are actually gonna like improve, gonna make each other more important. So I think blockchain is only going to get more and more important with artificial intelligence. And also, I think the security of blockchain as a financial technology is going to get more and more important as artificial intelligence becomes more susceptible in finding different vulnerabilities in our financial systems and ability to attack different financial institutions. I think blockchain is going to become more important. So that was a loaded answer, but I've been reading a lot about AI, so it's something I'm quite passionate about right now. So I'll hand it
Yeah,
back
that
to
took
you.
a dark twist as well.
Sorry,
was
what
that?
was that?
I said your answer there took a bit of a dark turn as well. I was really into like the dark
Got
side of
so
what
carried
AI could
away
do.
there. Yeah, you're right.
But no, Maj, I mean, honestly, I like that take, to be honest with you. I think that AI and NFTs can be combined with great success. You know, you put those two things together and it provides a new avenue for, you know, same benefits that blockchain brings: more transparent, more secure system for creating, owning, and trading digital assets, while AI pretty much straps rocket boosters to the rate at which we can create digital assets. I think, you know, putting those two things together, it just provides a new avenue for creators and developers to monetize their creation, and provides a new way for consumers to engage with and own unique digital content. So fascinating stuff. Honestly, I love having these kind of discussions, and I'm sure we could probably talk about this ad nauseum for much, much longer. But seeing as we are approaching the hour, I think it's the right time to open this up for Q&A from the audience. So if folks want to request to be a speaker, we're happy to accommodate questions that way. Otherwise, I will just scan through the chat and fire up any questions that I see there. Okay, we've got West with the digital mic. Take it away.
Yeah. Thanks for letting me speak on your channel, man, on your space. Thank you.
We can hear you, Wes.
Question for the team? You're good to
Yeah. Yeah. I was just talking. I was just listening in on all the controversy right now with NFTs, and I understand exactly what you talking about. I just launched. I'm doing a drop on crypto.com actually on the 23rd of June, but I got my site up and running and everything, and I'm looking at how these NFTs are going, and it's like a lot of these things. It's like a lot of meme NFT, like a lot of stuff with no utility or anything. And I think what's going on right now is I think everybody's just ready for the metaverse to actually become like a real deal thing where people could just put on their VR glasses and just walk around in the real world and just see the metaverse happening right before us, like Ready Player One or something. You know what I mean? That's what I think a lot of people are just waiting for.
I definitely know what you mean.
Yeah.
What I'm going to put on my host cap and ask you do have a question for the three.
Oh yeah. The question I had was, is Kronos going to be I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought, man. I'm just surprised I got to speak right here inside of this space. But is Kronos going to be able to do you think Kronos has the power to take over Ethereum? Like, because Ethereum's gas prices, like I was listening on the other spaces, Ethereum and if it does take over Ethereum, you think it's going to be the gaming
I,
side of it?
I probably think
You think the gaming side of it is going to be I'm sorry, man. You think the gaming side of it is going to be you think the gaming side is going to include music into it as well? Because that's what it is. I'm doing. I'm just trying to find ways of maybe getting my stuff out there into bigger and better things. Honestly, like I make music.
Hey, West,
sorry.
I do apologize. I had to go for the mute button there. So I think the question was whether or not crypto.com is bullish on their ability to take over the gaming side from Ethereum, if that's what I heard correctly.
I'll take that one in the meantime. And there's no Jay's coming in.
Yes, that's the question. I'm sorry.
Cool. I mean, would love to hear your take as well, Sam. But I think from my perspective, right? So crypto.com, Cronos, I mean, we are separate environments, and Ethereum as well. It's a separate chain, right? So I think each of us has, like, comparing Ethereum to Cronos, right? There is different pros and cons, right? And why? And I think for Cronos ourselves, we have a deep focus in expanding our gaming ecosystem because we see a few key key factors of successes that we have, right? We have a strong user base that game developers would like to get access to, right? We have strong marketing channels, which we can leverage on Crypto.com's marketing channels. We can do very strong partnerships, such as this partnership opportunity with Altura as well, to help games to get further marketing opportunities, further access to users. And I think our tech, the Cronos tech building on top of Ethermint within Cosmos allows for much faster transactions and lower gas fees. Game developers would appreciate as well. So I think we have a couple of key success factors which I think allows us to position ourselves better in this race to be one of the key gaming chains. But we'd love to hear what Sam thinks.
Cheers. I don't think you'll find that Ethereum is actually of any use to most games. As you said, the gas costs on Ethereum are so high that a game could only release NFTs that have a extremely high value, which for a game that means they're not accessible to the average gamer. So it's not really in the best interest of a game to go on Ethereum. For those of you been in crypto long enough will remember that around 3 years ago, Ethereum gas fees were low. It was perfectly fine. It only cost a few cents to make a transaction. It wasn't even in the dollars. And then decentralized finance blew up, and that is really what has messed up the gas on Ethereum. So if Cronos continues its path and targets games and wants to be the game chain, that's going to be amazing. Unless they start targeting decentralized finance as well, I don't think you'll see the same gas issues. A lot of those gas issues are just when you have an individual who's trading a very large amount of money, they do not want to get front run, and so they are happy to pay stupid amounts of gas to ensure they don't get front run, which then puts up the gas price for everyone else. And we're not going to have that problem with a more gaming focused chain. When you're moving an NFT that's worth like $5 or even $50 or $100, you're not going to be paying $100 in gas to make that move faster. So you don't need to worry about these issues when it comes to a gaming chain. So in short, after all that ramble, Cronos could easily become the number one gaming chain, and Ethereum in the future won't even be a consideration for gaming.
Okay, cool. I think, you mentioned some OGs who may or may not remember low gas environments in Ethereum. We've got a question here from Derek Smart, who is a self-professed indie developer fossil. So I'll let him speak and get his question in. Welcome, Derek. You are now a speaker. Please enjoy your question. I believe he's just connecting now. There you go. So you're muted and you do have speaker rights, Derek. So take it away when you're ready.
You're muted, Derek. There's like a little microphone icon in the bottom left.
Oh, there it is. Oh, sorry about that. I didn't realize it was on. Sorry, guys. Let's start this again. Good morning, everybody. Glad to be here. I just had a quick question for you, Cronos guys. Everyone keeps talking about quote unquote gaming chains, and I agree that having a focused gaming chain is important. One of the things that I have seen in the past year and a half that I've been working on a blockchain on a Web3 game is that a lot of the games are moving on to a whole bunch of different chains, and then those games either don't make it or they fail. What exactly is Cronos doing to attract a better quality Web3 games, like for instance the Kingdom Carnage and others, in order to ensure that those of us who put millions of dollars into games, not hundreds of thousands of dollars, can rise above the chaff and be able to get wide adoption without every Web2 gamer that we've used to dealing with in the years look at our games and go, oh yeah, they've jumped from Web2 to Web3. It's all a cash grab. This all depends on the quality of games on the chains that we support, and that's really been my big concern. So what exactly is Cronos doing in order to stay above that? Is it marketing? Is it support? What is it? I mean, everybody's talking a good talk, but I don't see much happening by way of this sort of a problem.
Right. Thanks for the question, Derek. And how I can answer this is really to structure it into couple of reasons why game studios over the past year has decided to prioritize their engineering efforts, prioritize their marketing efforts to build their games on Cronos. Right. Number one reason, really a niche to Cronos, it's we have this access to a wide group of retail user base. Right. This is something that as the layer 1 space or layer 2 space starts to get heated up, right? Technology is always open source. It can be forked, it can be copied, right? But a user base like CrowFam, which is a lot of them are sitting in this chat today, is not something that you can easily build or copy overnight or over a few months, right? So this user base has been nurtured and built, and most of them are very loyal users of Crypto.com who has embark to Cronos for a decentralized open source experience. Right, so developers who build on Cronos essentially get access to the 80 million users, retail user base, CrowFam user base from Crypto.com, and definitely helps to lower user acquisition costs, helps them to get more targeted user acquisition strategies that the game developers can do. All right, that's number one. Number two, we oftentimes helped with very strong marketing efforts for games. One example, it's helping games to get more visibility on social media platforms like Twitter through Twitter Spaces, AMAs, like here we are right now. We also work with Crypto.com to have newsletters to promote games on Cronos. For example, a few days ago, Crypto.com just launched their NFT and their monthly NFT and gaming newsletter featuring a few games on Cronos, and that's distributed to their millions of user base worldwide. Right, and NFT and games that are building on Cronos can have their NFT mints in collaboration with Crypto.com as well, helping them to have a very successful NFT mint. I think that is very important because having a successful mint for some game studios would be a source of income for them to have the runway to build up their alpha or beta game. Right, and that's something that we support them, work hand in hand with developers to ensure that they have the initial success, initial go-to-market traction in order to build out their game roadmap. Right, and at our day, apart from a technology business that we are running, we're also running a service business, right? So we're helping game studios to have a successful launch and help them to scale their user base on the chain itself. And that's how we attempt to differentiate from other chains out there, right?
Sounds good. Thanks a lot. That answers my question.
Cool. Thanks a lot for the question, Derek. We appreciate it. Okay, so with that, I'm just being cognizant of time. We are approaching the top of the hour here for what I'm sure is probably a global audience. So I think we're going to wrap it up as far as Q&A goes. I'd like to just personally thank our participants from Kingdom Karnage, from Cronos, and Mej from Altura for sharing your insights, for sharing your opinions and your expertise on, yes, both this exciting partnership itself, and I, for one, I think we had a really good discussion on the wider Web3 gaming industry. So hope that this discussion has shed some light on a lot of the innovative developments that are happening in the space for our audience, and the opportunities that are taking place in what is a super rapidly evolving space. So to everyone who tuned in, thank you very much. Keep an eye out for future updates and collaborations from all of us involved here, because surely there are many to come. So with that, I'll say my final goodbyes. Thank you to everyone for joining us, and have a great remainder of your day wherever in the world you may be. Thanks, everyone.
Awesome.
Thank
Hi,
you.
everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks.